Playing World of Warcraft Classic for the very first time through the 20th anniversary servers has been one of the greatest gaming experiences that I have ever had. I've enjoyed it so much that in the last 11 months I have managed to level 4 entire characters to level 60, and that's why I have made it my ultimate goal to reach max level on every single class in the game. And well, I don't think it's any secret, but the anniversary servers will be going to TBC within the next 3 months, which means we've probably got time for one more class. And well, I wasn't really sure which class I wanted to play, so I left it up to you guys, and you guys picked Shaman. And of course, in vanilla WoW, only Horde can play Shaman. So today, I once more wave goodbye to the Alliance and sign my soul over to the Horde. Last time was the first day of playing our new Shaman. Starting out as a puny little level 1, we powered our way through the Valley of Trials and explored our way through the retina-burning atmosphere of Durotar and the massively underwhelming Barrens, before we ended it all with a fantastic run of Ragefire Chasm, where we managed to hit level 15. However, for today, I would like to set us the very simple goal of reaching level 25. So like I said, last time we ended with a Ragefire Chasm run. However, I realized not long after recording that video that I actually missed one of the chain quests. So that is where we start the day, in a cave just to the east of Orgrimmar. But what is so special about this quest that I am willing to go into a cave filled with grey level mobs? Well, you guys made it perfectly clear that putting my first couple of talent points into shield specialization apparently wasn't the greatest idea. And well, turns out I was following a meta build, which was meant for using the fastest dagger that I could find. However, that's not how I wanted to play Shaman. I wanted nothing more than to one-shot gnomes, specifically gnomes, which would require the use of a two-handed weapon. And the best one for us right now would be the Staff of Orgrimmar, which can be obtained from this quest. After picking up the insignia for the quest, I returned to Orgrimmar where, yes, I reset my talent points to make it right. And after turning in the cave quest and doing the follow-up, the quest required us to now go back into the Ragefire Chasm. So patiently, I stood outside the dungeon, watching the boosters and boosties walking by, until they got a message asking if I wanted to come as a healer. Now at first, I was pretty hesitant, since I'd only ever tanked and DPS'd before, but I thought, screw it, we might as well experience it at least once. Now, healing for the first time was going to go one of two ways. Either it was going to be incredibly easy because we were only level 15, or it was going to be insanely hard because we were only level 15. And pair that with the fact that I really didn't know any of the fancy healer tech. The only thing I could really think of was that I needed all ranks of my healing spells on my action bars, because there's not really any point in healing someone for 500 when they are only missing 150 health. The other thing that I ended up doing was really trying to take advantage of my passive mana regeneration, because at this level you cast 5 healing spells and then you were dry. But you know, it really wasn't that bad. I 100% thought I was going to mess up within the first 5 pulls and then alt F4 out of embarrassment. The only slight hiccup I had was during the first boss, where I think the hunter caught aggro and then was just obliterated, and then the pull immediately after, we pulled like 3 packs of mobs at once. And honestly, not a clue how we didn't wipe. Maybe hairy orc toes was meant to be a healer after all. But apart from that, the run was incredibly smooth. We managed to get Jergosh and Basilan down, which at the end of the day, that's what we were there for, so I was happy. We even took the time after the run to take down some random trash just for the XP. But now that that was done, I could return to Thrall and then Niru and turn the quest in for our shiny new staff. Now that we had gotten a pretty sizable weapon upgrade, I thought that it was time for a bit of questing, and what better place than Hell itself, also known as the Barrens. So to start it off, I made my way over to Ratchet to turn in and grab a big chunk of quests, and pretty much immediately went to the southern beach of Ratchet to locate and slay Baron Longshore for his head. But not only that, because the mobs here were a little bit lower level than I was, making it a fantastic option for leveling up my staff skills, since I hadn't really used one yet. I then moved west a little bit, where I was able to find this raptor den, where again I was mostly just leveling my staff skills, but here we needed to loot raptor horns, but also collect some stolen silver from a chest. The issue with that silver is that it was being guarded by 3 raptors, which obviously I wasn't going to be able to solo. Lucky for me though, I teamed up with a friendly hunter and we were able to take it all down together, and then loot the stolen goods. I then moved over to the west a little bit, where I was able to find a field filled with these storm snout lizard things. Very simple quest, kill it and loot a horn off of it, which very luckily I was able to get after only 3 mobs. I then made a quick return to Ratchet to turn in my quests, and then made the very long trip back up to the crossroads and over to this Horde hut thingy to grab a couple more quests that wanted us to slay Kolkar, which I wasted no time with and started on that immediately. Good thing about this quest though is that pretty much all of them are lower level than I was, so we were killing them in about 2 to 3 auto attacks. Plus we get to do it in the little oasis area, which if I'm being totally honest, I think is literally the only part of the Barrens that I think is aesthetically good. It's like they put so much detail and care into this one part and then just said, you know what? Nah, we'll just cover the rest of it in sand. But after getting the quest done, I immediately took it back over to the hut thing and accepted the next quest, which wanted me to kill Verog. Now here's the thing with this quest. My add-on questie basically just said, go to this spot and then kill Verog. But when I got there, Verog was nowhere to be seen. And all I can say is, thank God I randomly decided to read the quest, because turns out you actually have to spawn him in by killing Kolkar around his spawn point. But overall, it was a cool and unique quest mechanic. Afterwards, I decided to give the Kolkar a little bit of a break, you know, give them at least a chance to recover from my slaughter, and I decided to get started with the Witchwing Harpy quests. Nice and simple quest, kill harpies and then loot their talons. And if you've watched the channel before, you know exactly what I'm about to say. The harpies are ugly, like really ugly. I don't know what it is about it, man, but something doesn't sit right with me about these things. I mean, come on. Bird people. Fortunately though, the quest really didn't take too long to get done on account of most of them being lower level than I was. I then went to the very northeast part of the zone to this kind of hidden Venture Co area. Like, I mean really hidden. It took me way longer to find this area than it should have. And this quest was just like any other really. What we were after was a cat's eye emerald. Kill Venture Co and then they might drop it. However, that apparently wasn't the case here, because I'm not even kidding, I must have killed at least 50 of these guys. I was here for easily half an hour just running in and out of this cave trying to get the item. But after dying, respawning and then dying again, I honestly just got a bit fed up and decided to leave it be for now, and then I logged out for the night. Logging on to play the following day, you'll never guess where I went. That's right, I went to the Barrens. Now last time you might remember I went over to this Razormane boar area and I skipped it because I wasn't able to pull the mini boss without pulling every mob in existence. Well, I decided that I would start the day off by going back to these boars and finishing that quest off. This time though, it was incredibly easy because most of the mobs were grey now and we were giving them the 3-shot treatment, and all that was left to do now was kill a couple of Razormane Geomancers. After that was done, I returned to the crossroads to turn in a couple of quests, and then took a flight down to Ratchet to do the exact same thing, which just so happens to tip us over into level 19. Now level 19 is not only the best level for a twink character apparently, but we are now also appropriate level for our second dungeon, Wailing Caverns. So I headed over to Thunderbluff and grabbed the dungeon quest and stopped to update all of my abilities, and then made my way over to the dungeon entrance. So I know some of you probably wanted me to level as a resto, but nope, I went straight back to enhance, because my previous statement about one-shotting gnomes still stands. As for this group though, we were actually only doing it as 4 people. Originally, we actually had a full 5, but someone got kicked over something to do with threat? I don't know, I wasn't really paying attention. As a whole though, I actually do quite like Wailing Caverns. For me, I would put it between between Ragefire Chasm and the Dead Mines, with Dead Mines being at the top. I do really like the cave aesthetic, and there's parts of it that are almost flooded with stuff growing on the walls and it looks really cool. However, there is one part of the dungeon that I really dislike, and if that part didn't exist, I think it would be a lot better. Loot-wise, however, there is a couple of pieces that would be really good for us. Firstly, a glowing lizard scale cloak, probably the best cloak that we are able to get right now. Secondly, is the Staff of Living Root. Stat-wise, it's kind of whatever, but it does have good DPS. And of course, the king of loot in Wailing Caverns, the Leggings of the Fang. Offering 5 strength and 9 agility, these legs are absolutely nuts and would serve us well for many levels. So we clear our way through the first section of the dungeon until we find the first boss, Lord Cobran, the boss that can drop those insanely good legs. And well, we get the boss down and the legs dropped. Already, that's more loot than I've seen on my druid in like 4 months. And the weird thing was, I was seemingly the only person to need on them, so I won them, which obviously I was incredibly happy about. We then drop down and we get onto the boss, Kresh. Literally just a big neutral turtle. Loot wise, we don't really care. The shield might be of some use, I guess, but if you remember way back on my rogue, this boss is the boss that actually dropped Iron Patch Blade for us. Shame that's gone to waste now, but we clear our way through the piles and piles of useless trash mobs until we eventually find Scum, and he's the boss that can drop the glowing lizard scale cloak. I know, surprising that the lizard boss drops the lizard themed piece of gear. So we DPS him down and he does actually drop the cloak, and the only thing going through my mind at that point was awesome, 2 pieces of insane gear in one dungeon. But no, sadly, the warrior did win the cloak, but to be fair, he did practically hand me the legs, so fair enough. The next boss is Lord Serpentis. Loot wise, who cares, but you know, I think we have actually done quite a good job at clearing this dungeon since there is only 4 of us. I expected at least a little bit of resistance, but really it was very simple. And lastly is of course Verdan the Everliving, the boss that can drop our amazing staff, and surprisingly he does actually drop it. But here's the thing, the healer needed on it. And when it comes to loot, I'm usually pretty relentless, but I decided to pass on it because once we eventually got out of this place, we get another staff from one of the dungeon quests which is extremely similar. So earlier I talked about there being one thing in this dungeon that I hated. Well, what is it? It's this freak. I mean, could he really walk any slower? An escort that takes no less than 15 minutes and there isn't even a quest. The only thing he does do is spawn in the last boss of the dungeon. And okay, granted, he does drop some pretty cool loot that suits the entire group. But apart from that, I'm really not sure it's worth it. But on the bright side though, I suppose we did hit level 20, which is of course a massive milestone for us. I eagerly made my way back to Orgrimmar to visit my class trainer, and we managed to get some huge abilities unlocked. Of course, we now get access to Ghost Wolf, which will make traveling much quicker. But we also got Frost Shock. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is far better for damage than Earth Shock. So I'm thinking Earth Shock primarily is for interrupting spells, and Frost Shock is for damage with the added ability of slowing things that it hits. So I actually didn't go straight back into the world to quest, but instead I spent a good part of an hour in Orgrimmar just getting caught up with my leatherworking profession. And well, the guide that I was using told me to hold on to these belts, so now my bank just kinda looks like this. Apart from that, I flew around to all the different cities, turning in the loose quests that I had, including a very important Wailing Caverns quest, which awarded me with my weapon for the next 10 levels, the Crescent Staff. And then I went straight back to the Barrens again, because, well, where else am I gonna go? But this time we were going to do what I have titled the Theramore Ark. We needed to go to North Watchhold, I think that's what it's called, and we have to kill marines and loot their medals, and also kill 3 different little mini-bosses. Luckily, I had teamed up with a friendly rogue and priest, and holy crap, I don't know if it's just me, but my new legs and weapons make me do insane damage. We're just taking chunks of health at a time. The other thing that was here was an escort quest, which apparently has an incredibly long respawn timer. Our little group of 3 also very quickly turned into a full party, but eventually he respawns and we can start the quest. And it was a pretty regular escort quest, fast. The NPC made sure to walk as slowly as possible, and at first I just thought that we were escorting him out of the compound, but no, that wasn't the case. We were actually escorting him all the way back to Ratchet. And to put it into perspective to how long this quest took, in Ghost Wolf form, it took me about 2 minutes to get here, but walking it felt like an eternity. In fact, it took so long that by the time we were back in Ratchet, I now had a Blackwing Lair raid to get to. Still no DFT, by the way. After coming back from my raid empty-handed, I really just wanted to spice things up a little bit, so I decided to head into the Barrens for some questing. And what better way to start that off than slaughtering some harpies? This quest was basically the exact same as the one before, except this quest is slightly higher level, and the mobs are also slightly higher level. And just to emphasize how much I hate the harpies, I decided to unleash my world buffs that I had managed to get on my travels, and pair that with my new weapon and new legs. I actually don't think I've ever seen this much damage this early on. Quite literally, 3 auto attacks was enough to kill these mobs, and since we were up the north part of the zone anyway, I decided that I would give the Cat's Eye Emerald quest another go. So I made my way over there whilst killing raptors along the way for another quest. And I thought this would be one of those situations where I kill one mob and the item would drop after spending so long on it before. Yeah, well, what a stupid presumption that was, because once again I found myself running in and out of this cave, killing anything that moves. And is it just me, or is this quest always like this? Like, I'm used to some quests taking a while, but combined I had spent just under an hour on this one quest. Surely that's not normal, right? But I decided to stick it out this time, and after a million years, it finally dropped. And I could now return to the crossroads once again to turn in and collect quests, before heading south and towards another Razormane boar camp, where we had to kill and collect 60 quill boar tusks. Now I know that sounds like a lot, but typically you get 3 per kill, and we still had our world buffs active at this point, so we were once again just going mob to mob, two-shotting everything that moved. And honestly, that is everything I wanted to get from playing a shaman. After that was finished, I moved even more south, where I found giant scorpid nests, and here we had to collect scorpid eggs. So I spent ages scanning the ground for egg-shaped things to pick up. Yeah, well, how silly of me, because it's actually these giant boulder-shaped things. Obviously, I once again started moving south, because I actually had a class quest to turn in, which I was assuming was for the water totem, on account of the quest being called Call of Water. However, the follow-up quest wanted me to go all the way to Tarren Mill, which is quite literally on the opposite side of the world, and I'm really not sure if there's like a zeppelin to get over there, or if I was just going to have to run. So I decided to just skip over it for now, and instead went all the way back up north to the Harpy Den. This time we were needing to slay a mini-boss, who I guess is like the leader of the Harpies or something. But after turning that in, I can't lie, I was getting really sick of the Barrens. Like, don't get me wrong, the zone definitely keeps you busy, but after returning to the same POI 4 times, I was really just craving a little bit of change. So I decided to take a break from questing and go back into Wailing Caverns for another run. Once we were in the dungeon, we wasted pretty much no time and got started straight away. So I wanted to do the dungeon again for a few reasons. Like I said, just to take a break from the Barrens, and obviously another chance at getting the cloak, but also because during the first one, I actually never managed to get all of the quests done, and I still had 2 of them to finish, and I definitely didn't want to miss out on that nice chunk of XP. So first boss, Lord Cobran, and surprisingly, he did drop the leggings for a second time in a row, which the tank ended up winning. So to congratulate him, I tossed him one of my crappy armor kits that I had been passively crafting with the leather that I had gathered. We once again spent the good part of 15 minutes claiming our way through the ridiculous amount of trash mobs this dungeon has until we get to Lord Pythis. Now he did actually drop his blue one-handed mace, and at first I thought this would be good for tanking or like a quick swap to shield for mitigation, but it's really slow, plus the rogue needed on it, so I ended up just passing it over to him. Not too far from Pythis is of course Lizard Boy Scum, who I ended up tanking pretty much. And again, the cloak did drop, but sadly it was given to the rogue. Bit disappointing because I really wanted it, and to be honest, I wasn't going to come all the way back in just for the cloak. We then get down to Lord Serpent Tits no problem, and move on to the technically final boss, Verdan. And again, the the staff dropped. So that's twice in a row now that all 3 of the good pieces of gear had dropped. But again, it was needed on by the healer, and it would be such a tiny upgrade for us that I decided to just let him have it. And once again, we all decided to do the escort and slay Mutinous the Devourer, who dropped some really crappy shoulder pads. And with our second run of Wailing Caverns now finished, we had now completed every single quest that the dungeon offered. But turning these last couple in was very strange, because I had to find this tiny little hidden cave above the dungeon. My question is, before Questy existed, how the hell did anyone find this thing? Even with Questy, I was barely able to find it. With our last Wailing Caverns run now completed, it was time for our final push in the Barrens. I really just wanted to get this zone done, because honestly, I was so bored of running around the same zone for so long. So once again, I moved to the southern part of the zone to pay another visit to those lightning lizard things, this time to collect 3 vials of their blood. I also went back to that exact same Razormane boar place to once again slay some boars. Now this is what I'm talking about when it comes to this zone. Sure, it's a quest, it keeps us busy, and it gives us XP, but do I really need to go back to the same place 3 different times to do what is basically the same quest 3 times? After that was done though, I headed over to Camp Torajo to turn in and pick up the next Razormane quest, which I wasted no time with and started straight away. This one was a bit different though. Instead of just mindlessly running around killing whatever, we had to kill specific enemy types that would drop quest items based on the type that you had killed. And although we didn't have our world buffs anymore, and these mobs were actually my level, we were still chunking away at their health. If this is how Shaman is even at later levels, then honestly, this might be my new ult for TBC. The other quest we had here was killing 3 different mini bosses, which was as simple as it sounds really. And since I was down here anyway, I made a quick stop off at a place called Baal Modan. This part of the Barrens was quite cool though. It was like a dwarven quarry, I guess you could call it. Very simple quest here though, run around and kill a few different kinds of dwarves. And that was it. We had completed the Barrens. Okay, well, not really. I still had a decently large chunk of quests that I could do, but to be honest, that was the absolute last thing that I wanted to do right now. Now that the Barrens was completed, kinda, I now had a couple of options. Either I could head north and go into Ashenvale, or go west and into Stonetalon Mountains, and I decided on Stonetalon, because the quests in Ashenvale were still yellow and most of Stonetalon was green, and I didn't want to outlevel it. On my way in though, I found 2 NPCs waiting to give me a couple of quests, which obviously I accepted, and basically immediately after entering the zone, I felt a surge of relaxation coming over my body. Not having to stare at retina burning orange sand was honestly a massive blessing. Our first quest here was incredibly simple. Head around the corner and kill some Grim Totem. Now unfortunately the mobs were grey level, meaning we weren't getting any XP from killing them, but that also meant that we were 2-shotting all of them. So I turned that quest in and paid a visit to this little isolated camp in the southeast part of the zone, and I gotta say, this little place was so beautiful. This is what the Barrens should have been. It uses that bright orange sand, but it has some greenage to it and it complements it perfectly. I headed back over to the Grim Totem area for the follow-up quest. Again, it was basically the same thing as before, but this time we were killing the big bad versions of the mobs. And whilst I was doing that, I found an NPC called Kaya Flathoof, who was offering me an escort quest. And I suppose the idea behind this quest is that she's been captured by the Grim Totem and we are here to set her free, or something along those lines anyway. Afterwards, I quickly went to turn in the quest and then began venturing off deeper into the zone. And as I was coming up to my first quest objective, I found a wanted sign, which obviously I took on as well. Now this part of the zone was pretty awesome. The entire area was taken over by giant spiders, and you really do get that feeling in here, with the ginormous spider webs going from tree to tree, and I just thought that was really cool. Quest wise though, it was pretty simple. We were killing some spiders and also collecting some of their eggs. However, that wanted quest was also here. It wanted us to slay this giant elite spider, and well, I was feeling pretty confident, so I thought, screw it, there's no harm in giving it a go. And I felt like I kind kind of knew what the outcome was going to be, but I popped healing spells and I popped healing potions, and just by the skin of my teeth, I was surprisingly able to take it down. And now that the spider quests were completed, I once again moved further into the zone until I came across this Horde settlement called Sunrock Retreat. I really liked this area. It had the same combination of scenery as the camp from before, plus it has this nice pond in the middle with a bridge going over it, and it just felt really cozy. But just like most places, here we were able to pick up another chunk of quests and get ourselves a new flight point. And to start off those quests, I of course went back and over to the Ventricle Lumber area. And this is actually a quest that I am very familiar with. I've done it countless times on the Alliance at this point, but I do think it's really cool that despite picking up the quests in different areas, we still get access to the same quests. Eventually though, I found myself standing outside of the dreaded cave. On pretty much every single one of my characters, I have made an attempt to get into this cave and pick up whatever that quest is. But this time, I was determined to find out what it was. And lucky for us, I had made friends with another orc, and together, we powered our way through the kobolds. And finally, we had found the little goblin, and what he wanted us to do was protect him whilst he mined away at his mysterious ore. And honestly, thank God I never got to this point before, because there was absolutely no way I would ever have been able to solo this. But together, we were able to get the quest done pretty quickly, and could start clearing our way back out of the cave again. But now that I finally knew what that quest was, I went back and finished up the Ventricle murder, before heading back down south again and into Boulder Slide Cavern. Inside of here, we needed to collect some resonite crystals, and ordinarily, I think I probably would have struggled at least a little bit with this quest because it was absolutely filled with kobolds. However, they were once again grey mobs, so we could just one-shot our way through. Once we had finished up inside the cave, I made my way back to the first NPC that we visited to turn in. Now at this point, we were so close to level 25, and I kind of knew that if I were to go all the way back into the zone, we would end up finishing the video in the middle of doing something. So I am happy to say that we have completed the goal for today. I hope you all enjoyed today's video because I enjoyed making it. Gotta say, so far, I am really enjoying Shaman. I am very happy that that's what you guys picked for us to play next. And in retail, my mains were always Feral Druid, Fury Warrior, or Enhancement Shaman. And honestly, it's really nice to be able to see all of those familiar icons again. So at the time of writing this outro for the video, the TBC pre-patch date has been announced for January 13th. Huge excitement. I honestly cannot wait to see what is new. And as far as TBC goes, the situation on it for me is exactly the same. I've never played it before, and in fact, I've never even been to Outland before, except maybe once or twice where I took the Shatrath portals to turn in like time walking quests, but apart from that, I have literally no idea what to expect. But again, I would like to ask you guys, what video would you like to see next? We have 3 options: another Shaman video, Hunter video, or a different kind of video that I've wanted to make for a while, but just kind of never got around to doing it. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, I think that's enough yapping for today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all later.